Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the scandalous secrets behind Cleopatra's absurd political maneuvers. And no, it's not cute. It's weird, it's wild, and you probably wouldn't last 10 minutes without crying or getting fined in barley. You're standing on a balcony overlooking Alexandria, and the air smells like spices, low tide, and 1,000 years of questionable decisions. Below you, the most fantastic city in the world is a chaotic symphony of shouting merchants, braying donkeys, and the distant clang of a blacksmith who is definitely not getting paid enough for this. It's a multicultural metropolis, a global hub of trade and knowledge. It's also loud, sticky, and there's a non-zero chance that a sacred cat has peed on the fancy mosaic floor you're standing on. You wouldn't just survive here, you'd have to rule it, probably while dodging a thrown melon or an assassination attempt disguised as a poorly made salad. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Please let me know in the comments where and at what time you'll be watching from. Bonus points if you're watching this while pretending to work. We've all been there. Now grab snacks, mute your mom, and let's get weird together. Okay, deep breath. You are 18 years old. Congratulations, you've just inherited Egypt. The job comes with a gold crown, unlimited eyeliner, and a national debt that would make a loan shark weep. Your dad, Ptolemy XII, has just passed away. History remembers him by the nickname Elites, which translates to the flute player. This was not a compliment. It was the ancient equivalent of calling a world leader that guy who's weirdly obsessed with his garage band. He spent his entire reign hemorrhaging cash to keep Rome happy, basically paying them protection money so they wouldn't roll up and turn the pyramids into a parking lot. He debased the currency, sold off national treasures, and threw parties so lavish that they depleted the national treasury. Now he's gone and you're left holding the bill. The good news? You're smart, like terrifyingly brilliant. You speak at least 9 languages, you understand economics, and you've been studying politics since you were old enough to know that a smiling courtier is just a future backstabber you haven't identified yet. The bad news? You're not ruling alone. Your dad's will, which Rome conveniently notarized, states that you must share the throne with your younger brother, your 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII. You are now in the world's worst group project, and your partner's main political concerns are whether he gets a second dessert and which enslaved person gets to piggyback him to the throne room. He's not the real problem, of course. The real issue is his entourage, the unholy trinity of political swamp creatures running his life. First, there's Pothinus, a eunuch who is the kingdom's treasurer and has the cold, dead eyes of someone who's been calculating interest rates their entire life. Then there's Achilles, the top general, a guy whose solution to every problem is more stabbing. And finally, Theodotus of Chios, your brother's tutor, a smug intellectual who thinks he's the most intelligent man in any room and is determined to prove it by ruining your life. This trio has basically adopted your little brother and is using him like a puppet to run the country themselves. They see you, the competent and ambitious older sister, as a significant inconvenience, an obstacle to their power grab, a bug that needs to be squashed. You try to play ball at first, but your idea of co-ruling is you doing all the work while your brother is off somewhere learning his multiplication tables. You start making decrees, handling the famine that's currently making everyone miserable, and generally acting like a queen. Your first big, girl boss power move is to mint new coins with just your face on them. No brother, just you. It's a bold statement. It basically says, the adult is in charge. This does not go over well. The court gasps. Pothinus and his goon squad see their meal ticket, your brother, being sidelined, and they are not having it. They start whispering in the barracks, in the markets, in your brother's ear. Asterisk, she's trying to steal your throne. She's getting too powerful. She thinks she's better than us. Asterisk, the palace atmosphere goes from tense to toxic. Every meal feels like a trust exercise with the royal food taster. Every shadow in the hallway looks too much like a guy holding a dagger. Historians still argue whether the final split was a single, dramatic event or a slow, calculated coup by Pothinus. Honestly, who cares? It's like debating whether the avalanche was started by one specific snowflake or the general vibe of too much snow. The point is, you're about to get buried. The breaking point comes fast. With the country starving and restless, your brother's regents use the chaos to fan the flames of public anger directly at you. They accuse you of siding with Rome, of mismanaging the grain, of having an uppity female opinion. The army, loyal to their general Achilles, turns on you. 1 minute you're the queen of Egypt, issuing commands from a golden throne. The next, you're fleeing Alexandria in the middle of the night with a handful of loyal guards, sand in your costly clothes, and the burning humiliation of being kicked out of your own country by a 10-year-old and his shady council of evil step-uncles. You end up in Roman Syria, essentially a refugee queen. But you're not crying into a pint of goat milk gelato. No, you're angry. You're raising a mercenary army. You're plotting. You're planning your comeback. Because if there's one thing you know how to do, it's turn a catastrophic failure into a dramatic opportunity. You need a powerful ally, an unstoppable force, a man with an army big enough to crush your enemies and put you back on the throne you know is yours. And, as luck would have it, just such a man is about to sail into Alexandria. Chasing his own rival and utterly oblivious to the legendary family drama he's about to get sucked into. The news hits your dusty, windswept camp like a physical blow. Julius Caesar has arrived in Alexandria. This is it. This is your chance. But just as you're starting to strategize, a second wave of news comes, and it's a doozy. Your darling brother Ptolemy XIII, under the expert guidance of his cabal of morons, has decided to give Caesar a welcome to Egypt gift. They row out to his ship, all smiles and formal greetings, and present him with a sealed container. Inside is the head of Pompey the Great, Caesar's rival and former son-in-law, who had fled to Egypt seeking asylum. Pothinus probably thought this was a 10-tenths power move. Look, Caesar, we solved your problem for you. Aren't we helpful? You should definitely make us your new best friends. This backfires in the most spectacular way possible. Caesar, the man who famously wept at the tomb of Alexander the Great, is a ruthless politician, but he's also a man of tradition and weirdly sentiment. He wanted to pardon Pompey to demonstrate his magnanimity publicly. Killing an unarmed Roman consul who came asking for help was a massive, galaxy brain-level diplomatic screw-up. It was a violation of every sacred rule of hospitality. It was tacky. Caesar reportedly bursts into tears, not of gratitude, but of pure, unadulterated rage. He now sees your brother's court for what it is: a chaotic viper pit run by amateurs who don't understand the rules of the game. And just like that, you have your opening. The door to an alliance with Rome isn't just unlocked. It's been blown off its hinges by Pothinus's sheer stupidity. There's just one tiny problem. Alexandria is on lockdown. Your brother's general, Achilles, has thousands of soldiers patrolling the city. The harbor is blockaded. If you try to march your mercenary army to the gates, you'll be cut down. If you try to sneak in wearing a disguise, you'll be recognized and turned into a kebab. You need to get to Caesar, who has set up shop in the royal palace. Your palace, but you are public enemy number one. You are stuck. So you do what any desperate, brilliant, and slightly unhinged monarch would do. You come up with a plan so audacious, so theatrical, it belongs in a heist movie. You can't get through the guards, but a piece of cargo can. You summon your most trusted servant, a loyal Sicilian named Apollodorus. Your plan is simple. You're going to mail yourself to Caesar. The journey starts at dusk. You slip away from your camp and board a tiny fishing skiff with Apollodorus. The boat smells like fish guts and desperation. The waves of the Mediterranean are choppy, soaking your fine clothes with greasy, salty spray. This isn't a royal barge. It's the ancient equivalent of a rusty dinghy with a questionable motor. As you approach the heavily guarded harbor of Alexandria, it's time for the main event. Apollodorus lays out a large, coarse piece of fabric. Historians still argue whether it was a luxurious Persian carpet or just a grubby linen sack used for bedding. Plutarch, the guy who wrote all this down, used a Greek word that's frustratingly vague. But frankly, when you're being smuggled like a forbidden burrito, the quality of the tortilla is not your primary concern. You lie down. The fabric is scratchy against your skin. It smells like mothballs with a hint of old cheese. Apollodorus rolls you up, tight. Suddenly, your world is darkness, pressure, and the suffocating scent of wool. You can't move. You can barely breathe. Every bump of the boat sends a jolt through your compressed body. You can hear the muffled shouts of the harbor guards as Apollodorus docks. You can feel the boat rock as he lifts you. Slung over his shoulder like a rolled-up tent, he's taking to an unfortunate camping trip. He trudges through the city streets. Your sandals are probably sticking to goat pee on the floors of the palace corridors he's walking through. This is the least dignified moment of your entire life. You are the queen of the Nile, the living incarnation of the goddess Isis, and you are currently experiencing the world as if it were a piece of luggage. Apollodorus, playing the part of a humble merchant with a special gift for the Roman general, somehow bluffs his way past the checkpoints. The guards are probably bored, tired, and more interested in their next wine break than in inspecting a random dude carrying a rug. He makes it all the way to Caesar's private apartments. You can hear the muffled sounds of conversation, the clink of a cup being set down. Then you feel yourself being lowered to the floor. The ropes are untied. The rug is unfurled. Light floods your vision. You tumble out onto the marble floor, a heap of tangled limbs, messy hair, and wrinkled linen. You probably smell like a wet sheep. You look up and there he is, Gaius Julius Caesar, 52 years old, balding, with the most piercing eyes you have ever seen. He's the most powerful man in the world, a living legend who has conquered Gaul and crossed the Rubicon. And he is staring at you, a disheveled 21-year-old queen who just emerged from his home decor, with an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. There's a long, silent beat. Then he starts to laugh. He's not laughing at you. He's laughing at the sheer, magnificent audacity of it all. You didn't send a diplomat. You didn't send a letter. You delivered yourself. It's the boldest, cleverest, and most insane thing he has ever seen. In that moment, he's not just intrigued. He's hooked. You scramble to your feet, dust yourself off, and immediately launch into your sales pitch, using that sharp mind and 9 languages to charm, argue, and persuade. You are the rightful queen. You are the stable investment. You can offer him legitimacy, a secure base of operations, and, most importantly, the colossal wealth of Egypt to pay for his armies. That night, you don't just become his ally. You become his lover. And somewhere across the palace, Pothinus and your little brother sleep soundly, utterly unaware that their greatest enemy is now sharing a bed with their greatest threat. You wake up in your old bedroom. The sheets are much nicer than that carpet. From the window, you can hear the familiar sounds of Alexandria waking up. But this time, it's not the sound of a city that hates you. It's the sound of a city that's deeply confused. Because when your brother, Ptolemy XIII, shows up at the palace for his morning meeting with Caesar, expecting to continue his reign as the sole puppet king, he walks in to find you there, chatting with Caesar, looking suspiciously comfortable. Your brother completely loses it. He's 10, remember. He doesn't have political savvy. He has tantrums. He runs out into the street, rips his diadem from his head, throws it on the ground, and starts screaming to the public that he's been betrayed. It's a full-on royal meltdown. The crowd, already on edge and deeply suspicious of Roman interference, becomes increasingly agitated. This is precisely what Pothinus and Achilles were waiting for. They used the boy's tantrum as the spark to ignite a full-blown war. Achilles marches his 20,000-man army into Alexandria, and the city erupts into chaos. Suddenly, Caesar isn't a guest anymore. He's a prisoner. He's trapped in the royal quarter with you, his single legion, and a handful of auxiliary troops. You're outnumbered, surrounded, and under siege in your own palace. The next few months are a blur of brutal, close-quarter street fighting. You're not just a queen anymore. You're a co-commander in a desperate urban war. You can hear the screams from the street, smell the smoke from the burning buildings. At one point, to prevent the Egyptian fleet from being used against them, Caesar's men set fire to the ships in the harbor. The flames spread, and a portion of the great library of Alexandria, the storehouse of all human knowledge, goes up in smoke. Historians still debate the extent of destruction in this fire versus later incidents, but imagine the texts. priceless scrolls of science, philosophy, and history, turning to ash because of family drama. It's the intellectual equivalent of burning down the internet to win an argument. During the siege, your scheming little sister, Arsinoe, decides this is her moment to shine. She escapes the palace, joins up with Achilles' army, and promptly declares herself queen. Now you've got two siblings trying to kill you. It's a real family reunion. She and Achilles immediately start fighting for control, which, hilariously, works in your favor. While your enemies are busy having their own internal power struggles, you and Caesar are fortifying the palace and, apparently, getting to know each other very well. Because somewhere amidst the catapults and the flaming arrows, you get pregnant. Eventually, Roman reinforcements arrive, the siege is broken, and Caesar's veteran legions crush the Egyptian army in the Battle of the Nile. Your little brother, Ptolemy XIII, trying to flee the battlefield, drowns in the river when his boat capsizes, weighed down by his own golden armor. It's the most ironic and well-deserved exit in history. His chief strategist, Pothinus, is captured and promptly executed. Your sister Arsinoe is taken prisoner. Just like that, all your immediate problems are solved. You are now the undisputed ruler of Egypt. But Caesar doesn't just pack up and leave. Oh no, he stays for months. He's the most powerful man in the world, with a civil war to finish and a republic to run. But he decides what he really needs is an extended vacation. And you, the ultimate host, decide to throw him the most extravagant victory tour of all time. You commission a magnificent ship, a floating palace called the Thalamigos. This isn't just a boat, it's a statement. It's a 2-story, 300-foot-long pleasure barge complete with colonnades, dining rooms, sacred shrines, and sleeping quarters that were probably nicer than most Roman villas. It was propelled by hundreds of rowers, a floating testament to the obscene wealth and power of the Ptolemies. Together, you embark on a leisurely cruise down the Nile, accompanied by a fleet of 400 other ships filled with soldiers, servants, and probably a truly heroic number of wine jars. This isn't just a romantic getaway. It's a calculated political spectacle. You are showing Caesar the incredible wealth and ancient grandeur of your kingdom. You're sailing past thousand-year-old temples, through fertile farmlands that are the breadbasket of the Mediterranean. Every stop is a carefully managed photo op. You are introducing your Roman lover to your people, legitimizing your rule through his presence. You're showing him what he stands to gain by keeping you in power. And you're showing the Egyptian people that their queen has the backing of Rome's greatest general. It's a PR tour, a victory lap, and a honeymoon all rolled into one. You visit temples, consult with priests, and make the proper offerings. You're not just some girl Caesar hooked up with, you're the pharaoh, and you're making sure he understands the divine, ancient power you represent. By the time you return to Alexandria, you will have given birth to a son. You name him Ptolemy Caesar, but everyone calls him Caesarion or Little Caesar. The name is a direct, audacious, in-your-face claim. This isn't just any royal baby. This is Caesar's son, the living embodiment of your alliance, a potential heir to not just Egypt, but to Rome itself. You've survived a coup, a siege, and a war. You've eliminated your brother, captured your sister, and secured the support of the most powerful man on earth. And now you have his child. You haven't just gotten your throne back. You've upgraded. Your Nile cruise is over, and reality hits like a splash of cold river water. Caesar has to go home. He's got wars to win, a government to reform, and a city full of grumpy senators who are getting increasingly twitchy about his whole dictator-for-life vibe. He leaves 3 Roman legions stationed in Egypt, which is both a comforting security blanket and a not-so-subtle reminder of who's really in charge. You're the queen, but you're a client queen. Your kingdom is effectively a Roman protectorate, and those soldiers aren't just there to protect you from your enemies. They're there to protect Rome's investment from you. After he tidies up his civil wars, Caesar does something unprecedented. He invites you to Rome. This is not a state visit. This is a scandal. Foreign monarchs were generally not welcome in the city itself. It went against every Roman tradition of not bowing down to kings. But Caesar doesn't care about tradition. He's Caesar. He sets you up in his luxurious private villa across the Tiber River, a lavish estate with sprawling gardens. You don't arrive alone. You bring your entire entourage, including your infant son, Caesar. You are making a statement. You are the exotic foreign queen, the mother of his only son, and you are here to be seen. Rome is a sensory overload, compared to the refined, multicultural elegance of Alexandria. It's a chaotic, noisy, and frankly smelly construction site. The streets are a mess of mud and marble dust. The air is thick with the stench of open sewers and sacrificial animal guts. The people are loud, aggressive, and deeply suspicious of anything foreign. You, with your sheer linens, elaborate Egyptian hairstyles, and coal-lined eyes, stick out like a flamingo in a flock of pigeons. You are the talk of the town, and not in a good way. The Roman elite, a bunch of crusty old aristocrats who pride themselves on their stoic, no-nonsense Romanness, are absolutely horrified by you. They see you as everything they're supposed to despise. You're a queen, and they kicked out their last king 400 years ago. You're Eastern, which in their minds means you're decadent, effeminate, and morally suspect. You're extravagant, dripping with the kind of wealth they publicly condemn while privately craving. And worst of all, you're smart. You're a woman who speaks their language better than some of them do, who engages in intellectual debates with their top philosophers, and who clearly has a powerful influence over their dictator. The famous orator Cicero, one of the sharpest minds in Rome, absolutely loathes you. He complains in his letters about your arrogance and gripes about a time he visited you and you promised him some books from the Library of Alexandria. A promise he felt was beneath your royal dignity even to discuss. Historians still argue whether his dislike was genuine intellectual snobbery or just plain old misogyny and xenophobia. Let's be real, it was probably a potent cocktail of all three. Caesar, completely besotted and utterly indifferent to the opinions of his peers, leans into the controversy. He commissions a solid gold statue of you, depicted as the goddess Isis, and places it in the temple of Venus Genetrix. Venus, the mythical ancestor of Caesar's own family. He is publicly linking his divine lineage with yours. It's a move of such breathtaking arrogance that the senators start clutching their pearls so hard they turn to dust. He's not just having an affair. He's integrating his foreign mistress and her bastard son into the very fabric of Roman religion and identity. This is not just a fling. It appears to be the foundation of a new, hereditary dynasty. A Hellenistic-style monarchy, the exact thing Rome was founded to oppose. You, meanwhile, are playing your part perfectly. You hold court in your villa, dazzling some and offending others. You're a living, breathing piece of political theater. Every outfit you wear, every party you host is a calculated move. You are forcing the Roman elite to acknowledge you. You are establishing yourself and, more importantly, your son as figures of international importance. You introduce Roman society to some Egyptian customs, and they adopt the ones that involve more drinking and fewer hieroglyphs. It's a quirky cultural exchange that mainly consists of you being fabulous and them being scandalized. One tidbit that probably weirded them out was the Egyptian reverence for cats. To a practical Roman, a cat was a glorified mousetrap, not a divine being worthy of mummification and a temple. But underneath the glamour, your position is incredibly precarious. Your entire status in Rome hinges on one man. One powerful, aging, and increasingly unpopular man. The whispers in the Senate are getting louder. The plots are getting thicker. Men like Brutus and Cassius, who once fought against Caesar and were pardoned by him, are now exchanging nervous glances every time he enters the room. They see the gold statue. They see you. They see Caesar, and they don't know the future of Rome. They see its destruction. You are a walking, talking, perfumed justification for assassination. Every day you spend in that villa, flaunting your connection to Caesar, you are inadvertently helping to sharpen the knives that are being prepared for his back. You came to Rome to secure your future, but you may have just sealed his fate. The morning of March 15th, 44 BC, feels like any other day. You're in your villa, maybe overseeing Caesarian's lessons or dealing with some ridiculously complex Egyptian grain export paperwork that followed you all the way to Italy. The air in Rome is tense. It's been tense for months. Everyone has been walking on eggshells around Caesar's new title, Dictator Perpetuo, Dictator for life. It just sounds permanent, too permanent for a republic. There have been rumors, bad omens, whispers of conspiracies. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, had a nightmare and begged him not to go to the Senate that day. But he went anyway, because he's Caesar. What's the worst that could happen? The news arrives like a thunderclap, delivered by a frantic, breathless messenger. Caesar is dead. He wasn't just killed. He was butchered and stabbed 23 times by a mob of senators at the foot of a statue of his old rival, Pompey. Your entire world collapses in that instant. Your protector, your lover, the father of your child, the pillar holding up your whole political existence, has been turned into a human pincushion. The city outside your villa erupts into a terrifying chaos of rioting mobs and panicked politicians. The assassins, led by Brutus and Cassius, are hailing themselves as liberators. But nobody knows what happens next. Is it a civil war? Is it anarchy? The only thing you know for sure is that you and your son are in catastrophic danger. You are the foreign queen, the symbol of Caesar's monarchical ambitions, the woman with the golden statue in their temple. To the liberators, you are unfinished business. To the Roman public, who are currently burning Caesar's body in the Forum and hunting down anyone with a similar-sounding name, you're a lightning rod for their grief and rage. Your villa, once a symbol of your power, is now a gilded cage. Every creak of the floorboards, every shout from the street, sounds like an approaching lynch mob. Your priority is Caesar Ion. He is 3 years old. He is also Caesar's only biological son. In his will, Caesar did something that was both a relief and a slap in the face. He posthumously adopted his great-nephew, Octavian, and named him as his primary heir. Caesar Ion is mentioned, but he isn't legitimized or given any official standing in Roman politics. It's a small mercy. If Caesar had named him the heir, you and your son would have been the first people hunted down and killed by both the assassins and by Caesar's own supporters, who wouldn't want a foreign-born child king. But even without being in the will, he's still a threat. He's a living, breathing symbol, a potential rallying point for anyone who wants to challenge Octavian's claim. He has Caesar's blood. He has to disappear. You go into lockdown. Historians still argue about the precise timeline of your escape. It's a frantic, blurry period. Did you flee that very night, or did you wait for the political dust to settle for a few weeks? The records are thin, which tells you everything you need to know about how secretly and quickly you had to move. You can't just book a cruise ship back to Alexandria. The assassins control parts of the city. The harbors are being watched. You have to orchestrate a clandestine extraction, moving a queen and a royal heir out of a hostile capital city without anyone noticing. Imagine the paranoia. Every servant is a potential spy. Every friendly-seeming politician is a possible traitor. You're relying on the few loyalists Caesar had left, people who are now risking their own lives to help you. One of these figures is Mark Antony, Caesar's charismatic and hard-partying co-consul. He gives a fiery funeral oration that turns the public against the assassins, but he's also playing his own game, trying to seize power for himself. He might help you, or he might sell you out if it benefits him. You can't trust anyone. Your escape is a masterpiece of misdirection and speed. You pack light. No golden statues this time. You probably travel under the cover of darkness, disguised as common merchants or maybe even enslaved people, taking an unassuming ship from a smaller, less watched port. The journey across the Mediterranean is nerve-wracking. Every distant sail on the horizon could be a ship sent by Brutus and Cassius to intercept you. You're sailing away from the center of the world, back to your own kingdom, but it doesn't feel like a triumphant return. It feels like a retreat. You land in Alexandria a changed woman. You left as a celebrated queen, the lover of the world's most powerful man. You return as a widow or something like it, and a single mother with a politically dangerous child. Your arrival is quiet. There are no parades. The Roman legions stationed in your city are now a source of anxiety. Who are they loyal to? The Senate that killed Caesar? The men scrambling to take his place? You immediately get to work consolidating your power, shoring up your defenses, and watching the chaos in Rome from a safe distance. Back in Rome, your infamous golden statue is quietly taken down from the Temple of Venus. It's as if the city is trying to erase you, to pretend the last 2 years never happened. Your sister, Arsino, whom Caesar had paraded through Rome in his triumphal procession, is still alive, living in exile in the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. She's a loose end, a rival claimant to your throne who might see the current chaos as her own golden opportunity. You have survived the Ides of March, but the danger is far from over. You've escaped the collapsing building, but now you're standing in the rubble, and you can hear the footsteps of a whole new set of monsters approaching in the dark. You're back in Alexandria, and the palace that was once a golden cage under your brother is now your fortress. The Roman Civil War is a distant storm, a fascinating and terrifying spectator sport. From your side of the Mediterranean, you watch as Caesar's heirs, his adopted son Octavian and his loyal general Mark Antony, form a shaky alliance with a third wheel named Lepidus. They call themselves the Second Triumvirate, which is a fancy Latin term for 3 dudes who agree not to kill each other until they've killed everyone else. They hunt down and execute Caesar's assassins, unleashing a bloodbath across Italy. You wisely stay out of it. You play neutral. You send condolences. You offer support that never quite materializes. You are the friend who texts "OMG, that sucks," but turns off their phone when asked for a ride to the airport. Your primary concern is right here at home. Egypt is yours, but the Ptolemaic dynasty has a long, bloody tradition of sibling rivalry that makes a season of Game of Thrones look like a family picnic. Your younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, whom Caesar had installed as your new co-ruler and husband. Yes, you had to marry this one, too. It was super awkward for everyone. Is now a teenager. And a teenage boy with a claim to a throne is like a toddler with a grenade. He might not know how to use it, but he's still a danger to everyone in the room. He's a potential pawn, a figurehead for any faction at court that thinks you're getting too big for your fancy sandals. You can't afford another family coup, not with Rome in chaos and your own position still fragile. So you do what a Ptolemy does best. You prune the family tree. One day, your 15-year-old brother-husband dies. The official cause is never clearly stated. Maybe it was a sudden illness. Maybe he choked on a figure. Perhaps he was poisoned. Historians still argue whether you directly ordered his death, or if it was just a happy accident orchestrated by your loyal courtiers who knew what needed to be done. It's the kind of plausible deniability that influential people have perfected for centuries. All we know for sure is that your co-ruler problem is suddenly and permanently solved. With him out of the way, you do something truly revolutionary. You declare your 3-year-old son, Caesarion, your co-ruler. He is now Ptolemy XV Caesar, king of Egypt. This is a brilliant move. He's no threat to you. His most significant political decision is what color tunic to wear, but his name is a powerful weapon. By putting Caesar on the throne next to you, you are constantly reminding the world, and especially Rome, of his parentage. You are cementing his legitimacy and tying your dynasty's future directly to the legacy of the martyr Julius Caesar. But there's still one loose end. Your sister, Arsino. She's the one who escaped the palace during the siege, declared herself queen, and gave you and Caesar such a headache. After her capture, Caesar had spared her life, exiling her to the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, a major city in modern-day Turkey. The temple was considered a sacred sanctuary, a place where she was supposed to live out her days in quiet, holy retirement. But Arsino isn't the retiring type. She's still a threat. As long as she's alive, she's a rival claimant. She's a backup queen that one of your many enemies could prop up to challenge you. She's been a thorn in your side since she was a teenager, and you're done with it. You need her gone, but you can't just march Egyptian soldiers into a Roman province and drag her out of a holy temple. That would be a diplomatic and religious disaster. You need someone else to do your dirty work. Someone who is already in the area, who has an army, and who owes you a favor. Or even better, someone you can put in your debt. And that someone is Mark Antony. He's in the east, cleaning up after the war against Brutus and Cassius, and he needs money. He needs a lot of money. Triumvirs are expensive. They have massive armies to pay, and the provinces have been bled dry by years of civil war. You have what he needs, the legendary wealth of Egypt. So you make him an offer he can't refuse. A quiet little request, a favor for a friend. According to the historian Appian, at your instigation, Antony sends assassins to Ephesus. They violate the sacred sanctuary of the temple, a huge taboo, drag Arsinoe from the altar, and kill her right there on the temple steps. It's a brutal, sacrilegious act that shocks the Roman world. The priests at Ephesus are outraged. Your enemies are horrified, but you are safe. You have now systematically eliminated every single one of your siblings. The brother who drowned, the brother who was probably poisoned, and the sister who was murdered on holy ground. The House of Ptolemy is officially a one-woman show. It's a ruthless, chillingly efficient consolidation of power. You've used the chaos of the Roman world as cover to clean your own house with blood and poison. While the men of Rome were busy stabbing each other in the front, you were quietly and methodically eliminating every threat to your throne from behind. You are finally, truly, the undisputed queen. With your domestic rivals out of the way, you can finally focus on the bigger picture. The Roman world is now carved up between Octavian, who controls the West, and Mark Antony, who's in charge of the East. Your kingdom sits squarely in Antony's jurisdiction, which makes him your new landlord, and he has some questions for you. During the civil war against Brutus and Cassius, you played a clever and slippery game of neutrality. You'd promised ships and supplies to the triumvirs, but a lot of that aid somehow got lost at sea or captured by pirates. One of your governors even sent his fleet to help Cassius, an act you later claimed was totally rogue and that you were very, very disappointed in him. It was all highly suspicious. Antony, now swaggering around the East like he owns the place, which technically he does, needs to know whose side you're really on. And more importantly, he needs your money. He needs to pay his legions, fund his planned invasion of Parthia, the Roman Empire's greatest nemesis, and generally finance his rock and roll lifestyle. He summons you to meet him in Tarsus, a city in southern Turkey. This is not an invitation. It's a subpoena. You are being called to account for your questionable loyalty. A lesser ruler might be terrified. They might show up with chests of gold, groveling and begging for forgiveness. But you're not a lesser ruler. You're Cleopatra. You don't see a summons. You see a stage. This isn't an interrogation. It's an audition. You know precisely who Mark Antony is. He's not the cold, calculating Octavian. He's not the cerebral Julius Caesar. Antony is a man of legendary appetites. He loves wine, women, feasts, and spectacle. He's a soldier's soldier, a charismatic brawler who models himself after Hercules and Dionysus. He's powerful, he's indulgent, and he's theatrical. Trying to appeal to his sense of fiscal responsibility would be like trying to teach a cat to file taxes. So you decide to appeal to his senses, all of them. You deliberately make him wait. Days go by. Antony is sitting in the city square of Tarsus, getting grumpier and grumpier, while the local population mills around, waiting for the show. He sends messengers. You ignore them. You are building anticipation. You are making the world's second most powerful man wait for you. Finally, on your own schedule, you make your entrance. And it is the most extra, most ridiculously over-the-top entrance in the history of humanity. You don't just sail into the harbor. You sail up the river Cydnus right into the heart of the city. You arrive on your magnificent golden barge, the one you probably kept from your Nile cruise with Caesar. But you've redecorated. The barge has a gilded stern, purple sails, the color of royalty and the most expensive dye in the ancient world, and silver oars that beat the water in time to the music of flutes, pipes, and lyres. You are not on the deck. Oh no, you are lounging under a gold-spangled canopy, dressed in the robes of the goddess Venus, or her Greek equivalent, Aphrodite. You are literally cosplaying as the goddess of love. And you're not alone. Your handmaidens are dressed as sea nymphs and graces, fanning you and arranging your robes. Young boys, dressed as cupids with tiny painted wings, stand on either side of your couch. The entire barge is smoking with incense, filling the air with the scent of exotic perfumes. The smell, a quintessentially Egyptian export known as kifi, was a complex blend of 16 ingredients, including myrrh, juniper, and cinnamon, creating a scent so potent that it was said to relax the gods. The people of Tarsus, who had gathered to see Antony, abandoned him in the marketplace and rushed to the riverbank, their jaws on the floor. The rumor spreads like wildfire through the crowd. Aphrodite has come to revel with Dionysus for the good of Asia. Antony is left sitting alone on his official tribunal platform, completely upstaged. The power dynamic has been flipped in a single, perfumed afternoon. He's no longer the Roman general interrogating a client queen. He's the guest of honor at a divine spectacle, and you are the star. Humbled and utterly intrigued, he sends an invitation for you to dine with him. You send back a reply that basically says, "No, you're dining with me." That night, you host him on your barge. The feast is legendary. The sheer extravagance is mind-boggling. Dazzling arrays of golden plates, priceless tapestries, and food so exotic it probably took a team of foragers weeks to find. Plutarch writes that the lighting alone was a work of art, with countless lamps arranged in intricate patterns. You are witty, charming, and fluent in his language. You drink with him, you banter with him, you match his larger-than-life personality with your own divine confidence. He is entirely, utterly captivated. He came to Tarsus expecting to chastise a subordinate. He leaves as your conquest. He forgets all about your questionable loyalty. He forgets all about his invasion of Parthia. He forgets all about his wife, Fulvia, who is back in Italy trying to start a war in his name. He agrees to spend the winter with you in Alexandria. You have not just neutralized a threat. You have acquired a new Roman, a new protector, and a new lover. And you did it all with a boat, a costume, and a cloud of really, really good perfume. Antony follows you to Alexandria, and the city that once drove you out now lies at his feet. You've basically adopted a 40-year-old Roman frat boy with an army, and your primary job is to keep him entertained. Luckily, your city is the ancient world's Las Vegas, and you are the ultimate host. The winter of 41 to 40 BC becomes a legendary months-long bender. The sober, intellectual court you maintained after Caesar's death is gone. Now, the palace is a 24/7 party. You and Antony decide that your lifestyle is so uniquely fabulous, so ridiculously decadent, it needs a name. So you found a club, an exclusive society of two, though you occasionally let your inner circle join in. You call it the Amimitobioi, which translates to the inimitable livers. It's a society dedicated to a life that cannot be copied, a commitment to being so over the top that normal people can only stare in disbelief. Your days are a blur of lavish feasts, your nights a whirlwind of questionable decisions. One night, you'll host a 12-course dinner where every dish is stuffed with another, more expensive dish, like a culinary turducken of obscene wealth. The next, you're both getting smashed on wine that costs more than a family home and arguing about philosophy until dawn. But you don't just stay in the palace. That would be boring. You and Antony, the two most powerful people in the Eastern Mediterranean, frequently dress up as common servants and wander the streets of Alexandria at night. You're slumming it for the thrill. You stumble through the back alleys of the Rhocotis district, your royal feet sticking to floors slimy with spilled beer and fish guts. You play pranks on the locals, knocking on windows and running away like teenagers. You get into drunken arguments with merchants, you heckle street performers, you eat greasy, fire-roasted street food that would probably make your official food taster have a heart attack. Antony loves it. This is the kind of raw, unfiltered life he understands, a welcome break from the stiff formality of Rome. He's in paradise. He sheds his heavy Roman toga for lightweight Greek robes. He learns to appreciate your spiced Egyptian wine, and he lets himself be completely absorbed into your world. Historians still argue whether this was all a calculated political strategy on your part, a brilliant way to ensnare Antony, making him dependent on you and alienating him from his Roman roots, or if you were both just genuinely chaotic individuals who found your soulmate in mutual bad decisions. Honestly, why can't it be both? You're multitasking. The most famous story from this time involves a fishing trip. Antony, who fancies himself a great outdoors person, is having a bad day. The fish aren't biting, and his fragile male ego is taking a hit in front of you, the queen of the Nile. So he resorts to cheating. He secretly orders one of his servants to dive under the water and attach a fish that had already been caught onto his hook. He catches fish after fish, puffing out his chest and acting like the world's most excellent fisherman. You, being approximately 1 billion times smarter than he, see right through this pathetic charade. But you don't call him out. That would be too simple. You play along, congratulating him on his incredible skill. The next day, you invite a huge group of friends to watch the master fisherman at work. Antony, eager to impress the crowd, takes his spot and casts his line. He feels a mighty tug almost immediately. He struggles, grunting and groaning for dramatic effect, telling everyone he's got a huge one this time. He hauls it out of the water with a triumphant roar, and on the end of his hook is a large, very dead, salted fish, the kind you buy at the market. Your diver had beaten his diver to the punch. The entire crowd erupts in laughter. Antony is mortified. You lean over, pat his arm, and deliver the killer line. General, leave the fishing to us fishermen of the Pharos and the Canopus. Your game is the hunting of cities, provinces, and kings. It's a gentle mockery, a perfect little power play that says, I see you, I'm smarter than you, and I love you anyway, you big idiot. But the real world can't be held off by pranks and parties forever. While you've been playing dress-up and gaslighting Antony with salted fish, his wife, Fulvia, and his brother Lucius have started a full-blown war against Octavian back in Italy. They did it in his name, trying to secure more power for him, but it has been a catastrophic failure. They lose, badly. A messenger arrives from Rome, his face grim, carrying letters that slice through the drunken haze of Alexandria. Antony's family has been defeated. His political position in Rome is in shambles, and his rival Octavian is consolidating power. The party is over. Antony has to go back. He has to fix the mess. As he sails away, leaving you and the glittering lights of Alexandria behind, you're left with the silence. A palace that suddenly feels too big, and the cold, sobering realization that your lover's world is far more complicated and dangerous than a drunken fishing trip. The party's over, and you're left with a legendary hangover and an entire country to run. While Antony is off in Italy patching up his toxic partnership with Octavian, you're back to being the CEO of Egypt. The glamorous, goddess cosplaying, prank-pulling queen is gone. In her place is Cleopatra, the administrator, the economist, the bureaucrat. And it is the least glamorous job in the world. Running Egypt is an exercise in mind-numbing, soul-crushing paperwork. The Ptolemaic kingdom was one of the most intensely managed economies in the ancient world. Everything was regulated. Everything was taxed. Your life is a blizzard of papyrus scrolls covered in dense, tiny demotic script. You wake up, and your first meeting is with the chief financial minister, discussing the debasement of the silver tetradrachm to meet state payroll. Your lunch is spent reviewing land survey reports from a village 300 miles up the Nile that you've never heard of. Your afternoon is a long, tedious argument with the high priests of the Temple of Ptah at Memphis over their tax-exempt status. The priests are a constant headache. They are immensely powerful, owning vast tracts of land and controlling the nation's spiritual life. They see themselves as the true guardians of Egyptian tradition, and they view your Greek-speaking dynasty with a healthy dose of suspicion. You must constantly appease them, showering them with gifts, funding temple restorations, and participating in ancient, complex religious rituals that involve a lot of chanting and uncomfortable headgear. You are depicted on temple reliefs making offerings to Egyptian gods, wearing the traditional attire of a pharaoh. It's a vital part of your public image, showing the native population that you respect their traditions. But behind the scenes, you're haggling with them over every bushel of wheat they owe the state. Historians still argue how much of your religious devotion was genuine faith versus shrewd political calculation. It's the eternal question. Did you really believe in the hawk-headed god Horus? Or did you know that sponsoring his festival was good for business? Your most significant responsibility is managing the grain. Egypt is often referred to as the breadbasket of the Mediterranean. The annual flooding of the Nile deposits rich, fertile silt, allowing for massive harvests that feed not just your own people, but half the Roman world. The grain supply is the source of your wealth and your power. but it's also your greatest vulnerability. If the Nile flood is too low, the harvest fails and people starve. If the flood is too high, it destroys villages and infrastructure. You are at the mercy of a river. You spend your days reading reports from the Nilometers, stone pillars up and down the river with markings to measure the flood's height. The difference of a few feet on a stone marker in Aswan can mean the difference between a prosperous year and a full-blown famine that could lead to riots and rebellion. When the harvest comes in, your army of scribes and tax collectors swarms the countryside. Every farmer has their land measured, their yield assessed, and their tax calculated. The state takes a considerable portion of the crop, storing it in massive government granaries. This isn't just about collecting revenue, it's a national food security system. A quirky detail of this system was the use of ostraca, broken pieces of pottery, for receipts and short-form contracts. Instead of wasting expensive papyrus, a tax collector would scrawl "paid" 10 jars of wheat on a pottery shard and hand it to a farmer. Your kingdom's finances are literally running on garbage. But things go wrong. Locusts swarm. A cattle plague sweeps through the delta. A vital irrigation canal becomes clogged with silt, and the local official in charge is either too lazy or corrupt to address the issue. Every problem lands on your desk. You're not just a queen, you're a micromanager. You issue decrees specifying the exact type of seed to be used in a particular region, you set price controls on bread during a shortage, and you dispatch royal inspectors to investigate reports of a corrupt tax collector who's skimming grain off the top. You're buried in the mundane, gritty, unglamorous reality of keeping a civilization alive. During this time, you also give birth to twins, a boy and a girl. You name them Alexander Helios, sun, and Cleopatra Selene, moon. They are Antony's children. You send word to him in Rome, but his reaction is complicated. He's in the middle of a political firestorm, and the news that he has 2 more illegitimate children with a foreign queen is not exactly helpful. In fact, to smooth things over with Octavian, he does the one thing guaranteed to infuriate you. He agrees to an arranged marriage with Octavian's sister, the noble, virtuous, and respected Octavia. It's a political move, a public declaration of unity between the 2 most powerful men in Rome. But to you, 2,000 miles away, it's a profound betrayal. The leader of the inimitable livers, the man who played pranks with you in the streets of Alexandria, has traded you in for a sensible Roman wife. The party is definitely over. You spend the next 3 years in a state of royally infuriated silence. 3 years. Antony is off in Rome, playing the part of the dutiful husband to Octavia. He has 2 daughters with her. He's trying to be a respectable Roman statesman, but it's like trying to teach a bear to do ballet. He's clumsy, he's miserable, and everyone can see he doesn't belong there. His grand military campaign against Parthia, which he was supposed to launch years ago, remains just a PowerPoint presentation. He needs money, supplies, and a base of operations in the east. Octavia, for all her Roman virtues, can't give him that, but you can. Finally, in late 37 BC, he could no longer ignore you. He sends for you. He needs your help. He needs your money. He needs Egypt. He travels to Antioch in Syria, and you meet him there. This is not the giddy, romantic reunion of Tarsus. This is a business meeting. You arrive not as a goddess in a barge, but as a banker with a list of demands. You now have the leverage, and you will use every ounce of it. Before you give him a single coin or a single bag of grain, you make him pay. First, he has to acknowledge your children publicly. Your twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, are now almost 4 years old. He does. He also, finally, acknowledges the existence of your youngest son, Ptolemy Philadelphus, who was born after he left. Your children are now officially his children in the eyes of the world. Second, you want land. You're not just rebuilding an alliance. You're rebuilding an empire. You demand huge swathes of Roman territory. And Antony, desperate for your support, gives them to you. He hands over Cyprus, parts of Crete, the coast of Lebanon, including the legendary cedar forests that were vital for shipbuilding, the balsam groves of Jericho, which produced incredibly valuable perfume, and chunks of modern-day Syria and Turkey. It's an outrageous transfer of property. You are effectively reconstituting the old Ptolemaic Empire at Rome's expense. You are now the most powerful female ruler in the Mediterranean since the days of Hatshepsut. Historians still argue whether Antony had the legal authority to give away Roman provinces like party favors. The answer is almost certainly no, but he did it anyway. He's the boss of the East, and he's so entirely under your thumb, or so desperate for your cash, that he's willing to carve up his own territory to keep you happy. Back in Rome, when news of this gets out, the Senate has a collective aneurysm. With the deal sealed, Antony finally launches his Parthian campaign. It is an unmitigated, catastrophic disaster. He marches his massive army deep into enemy territory, gets outmaneuvered, his supply lines are cut, and he's forced into a horrifying winter retreat through the mountains of Armenia. His soldiers freeze, they starve, they're harassed by Parthian archers the entire way. He loses more than a third of his army, tens of thousands of men, not in a single glorious battle, but in a long, miserable, grinding defeat. He limps back into Syria, a broken and humiliated commander. And who is there to save him? You are. While he was freezing in the mountains, you were marshaling the resources of Egypt. You arrive with a relief column loaded with money, warm clothing, and supplies for his shattered army. You are his savior. You nurse his wounded pride. You refit his legions. You remind him that even in his darkest moment, you are his steadfast, capable ally. He is now completely, irrevocably dependent on you. There's no more pretending he's a Roman general with a foreign girlfriend. You are now partners, co-rulers of the East. To celebrate his survival, you decide to throw a massive public spectacle in Alexandria in 34 BC. It's known as the Donations of Alexandria, and it is the single most provocative, politically insane event of your entire career. You stage a triumphal procession through the city for Antony, celebrating his minor victories in Armenia as if he had conquered the world. This in itself is a scandal. A Roman triumph was only ever supposed to be celebrated in Rome. Then comes the main event. In the city's main gymnasium, you and Antony are seated on golden thrones raised on a silver platform. You are dressed as the goddess Isis, and he is dressed as the god Dionysus. Your 4 children, Caesarion and the 3 with Antony, are seated on smaller thrones below you. Antony gives a speech. He declares that Caesarion is the true, legitimate son of Julius Caesar, a direct slap in the face to Octavian, whose entire career is based on being Caesar's adopted son. Then, he starts giving away kingdoms to your children like a deranged historical Santa Claus. Alexander Helios is named king of Armenia, Parthia, which Antony totally failed to conquer, and Media. Cleopatra Selene is made queen of Cyrenaica and Libya. And little Ptolemy Philadelphus, who is probably just a toddler at this point, is given Syria and all the lands west of the Euphrates. You are declared Queen of Kings, and Caesarion is named King of Kings. You are no longer just the ruler of Egypt. You are the empress of a new Eastern Empire, a dynasty that will rival Rome. You are publicly declaring your intention to rule the world with your children, and Antony is just your consort. It is the boldest, most arrogant, and most suicidal political maneuver imaginable. You are drawing a line in the sand. You are daring Octavian to cross it. And in Rome, Octavian picks up the dare, smiles a cold, thin smile, and begins to sharpen his knives. The Donations of Alexandria is the political equivalent of dropping a lit match into a fireworks factory. When the news reaches Rome, the city doesn't just get angry. It has a complete and utter meltdown. Antony giving away Roman territory was bad enough. Celebrating a mock triumph in a foreign city was an insult. But declaring Caesar's biological son the true heir and setting up his own children as puppet kings of the East, that was treason. And at the center of it all, the Roman public saw one person. You, Octavian, who had been patiently waiting for Antony to self-destruct, now has all the ammunition he needs. He launches one of the most brilliant and vicious propaganda campaigns in history. This isn't just about politics anymore. It's personal. He's not just fighting Antony, he's fighting you. And he's going to make sure every single citizen of Rome, from the richest senator to the poorest dockworker, hates your guts. Suddenly, Pamphlets and political cartoons start appearing all over the city. Public speakers are paid to stand on street corners and rail against the foreign who has ensnared their noble general. The narrative is simple, effective, and deeply xenophobic. Antony is a good Roman, a brave soldier, but he's been bewitched. He's a helpless victim, corrupted by your decadent, Eastern sensuality. He's lost his Roman virtue, trading his toga for flimsy Greek robes, his honorable Roman wife for a lustful Egyptian queen. You are a sorceress who has drugged him with strange potions and enslaved him with forbidden magic. It's a character assassination of epic proportions. The stories they spread are wild and incredibly specific. They accuse you of being a drunk, claiming you and Antony spend your days in a perpetual state of intoxication, your minds clouded by fancy Egyptian wine. They paint you as a sexual deviant, a seductress who uses her body to control powerful men, a narrative they had conveniently forgotten when you were with Caesar. Still, now it's their favorite talking point. They seize upon your title, Queen of Kings, and twist it. See? She wants to be a monarch, a tyrant. She wants to move the capital of the Roman Empire to Alexandria and rule over us all, making good Roman citizens bow to her and her bastard children. One of the most effective attacks is on your foreignness. Every strange, exotic detail about your culture is used as a weapon. They mock your religion, portraying you as a worshipper of barking dog-headed gods like Anubis and other monstrous animal deities. To the pragmatic Romans, whose gods resembled idealized humans, this was proof of their barbarism. You're not just a foreigner. You're an uncultured savage who prays to crocodiles. They even make fun of your eunuch courtiers, like Mardian and Pothinus, the one Caesar executed, presenting them as symbols of the unnatural, effeminate corruption of your court that is now infecting Antony. Historians still debate the finer details of this campaign, but the sheer volume of surviving anti-Cleopatra poetry and prose tells a clear story. Poets like Horace and Propertius, funded by Octavian's circle, write scathing verses that become the hit singles of their day, the ancient world's nastiest diss tracks. The propaganda is working. Antony's support in Rome evaporates. His friends in the Senate don't know how to defend him. How can they argue against a man who seems determined to become everything a Roman is taught to despise? The final straw comes in 32 BC. Antony officially divorces Octavia. It's a public, brutal humiliation for Octavian's family and for Rome itself. He has chosen you, the Egyptian queen, over his noble Roman wife. Octavian sees his moment. He does something utterly illegal and totally brilliant. He marches into the Temple of the Vestal Virgins, the most sacred space in Rome, and seizes Antony's will. He reads it aloud to the Senate and the public. The contents are devastating. Antony's will allegedly confirm that he wants to be buried not in Rome, but beside you in Alexandria. It reaffirms the donations of land to your children. It basically confirms every piece of propaganda Octavian has been pushing for years. Whether the will was genuine or a clever forgery is a debate that still keeps classicists up at night. But it doesn't matter. It was believable, and that's all Octavian needed. The Senate is in an uproar. Octavian masterfully directs their rage. He doesn't declare war on Antony. That would be another messy Roman civil war, and people were tired of those. Instead, he declares war on you. You are the public enemy, the foreign threat. This is not a civil war between two Romans. It is a holy war to defend Roman civilization from a decadent, monstrous Eastern queen and her bewitched general. The entire might of the Roman Republic is now officially aimed, like a loaded javelin, directly at you. The war is on, and it's not just a war of words anymore. It's a war of ships, soldiers, and catastrophic tactical blunders. You and Antony gather your forces. You have a massive fleet, hundreds of warships, many of them the enormous, multi-decked quinquiremes and octeers, floating fortresses bristling with catapults and marines. You have a dozen legions, over 100,000 men. On paper, you are a formidable force. You establish your headquarters in Greece, preparing to meet Octavian's forces and finish this fight once and for all. But the campaign is a mess from the start. Your command structure is a dysfunctional nightmare. Antony's Roman generals are deeply resentful of your presence. They see you, a woman and a foreigner, sitting in on their war councils, offering your strategic opinions. They believe your very presence is demoralizing the troops, confirming Octavian's propaganda that Antony is just your puppet. One of his most trusted commanders, Domitius Ahenobarbus, gets so fed up that he defects to Octavian's side, taking Antony's entire war plan with him. The vibe in your camp is less band of brothers and more excruciatingly awkward office party where everyone hates each other. Meanwhile, Octavian's admiral, a military genius named Marcus Agrippa, is running circles around you. He's not a flashy aristocrat, he's a brilliant, ruthless strategist. While your massive fleet is bottled up in the Ambracian Gulf, near a place called Actium, Agrippa launches a series of lightning-fast raids, capturing your supply bases one by one. Your army and navy are slowly being starved out. Sickness breaks out in your camp. The water is contaminated, the food is running low, and morale is plummeting. Your soldiers are deserting in droves. You are trapped. Antony's generals advise him to abandon the fleet and march inland, to fight the decisive battle on land where his legions are strongest. The sound military advice. But you disagree. Your power, your wealth, and your escape route are all tied to your fleet. Abandoning the navy means abandoning the Egyptian treasury you brought with you and leaving yourself stranded in hostile territory. Historians still argue furiously over your role in this decision. Were you a strategic genius protecting your assets, or a paranoid queen who couldn't bear to be separated from her ships? Plutarch, whose primary source was an ancestor who fought at Actium, claims you were the one who insisted on a sea battle. Whatever the reason, Antony listens to you. The decision is made, you will fight at sea. The battle, on September 2nd, 31 BC, is a disaster waiting to happen. Your ships are enormous and powerful, but slow and difficult to maneuver. Octavian's and Agrippa's ships are smaller, lighter, and more agile, the Roman equivalent of speedboats zipping around a lumbering cargo freighter. They swarm your massive warships, ramming them, setting them on fire with flaming arrows, and using grappling hooks to board them. The battle quickly turns into a chaotic, swirling melee of smoke, screams, and splintering wood. And then, the moment that will be debated for the next 2,000 years happens. In the middle of the battle, your squadron of 60 ships, which had been held in reserve, suddenly raises its sails and makes a break for it. You, on your flagship, the Antonia, are leading the charge not towards the enemy, but away from the fight. You are fleeing. Antony, seeing your ship sailing away, does the unthinkable. He abandons his own flagship, transfers to a smaller, faster ship, and chases after you, leaving his entire fleet and his legions behind to be slaughtered. It is one of the most baffling and infamous moments in military history. Why did you leave? Was it a pre-planned escape? A strategic retreat you had arranged with Antony in case the battle went badly? Or did you panic, seeing the chaos and the flames, and run for your life? And why did Antony follow you? Was he so hopelessly in love that he couldn't bear to be separated from you? Or was he following a jointly agreed-upon plan to regroup and fight another day? We will never know for sure. What we do know is how it looked. To the men fighting and dying on those ships, it looked like a shocking act of cowardice and betrayal. They saw their general literally abandon them mid-battle to chase after his Egyptian mistress. The remaining fleet, leaderless and demoralized, surrenders. A week later, Antony's land army, which could only watch the disaster from the shore, also surrendered without a fight. In a single afternoon, you have lost everything. Your fleet is gone. Your army is gone. Your cause is lost. The Battle of Actium isn't even a close fight. It's an awkward, embarrassing, and total collapse. You and Antony managed to escape to Egypt, but you're not returning as conquering heroes. You're returning as fugitives, sailing back to a kingdom that is now the last, lonely island of resistance in a world that belongs entirely to Octavian. You arrive back in Alexandria with Antony, but the city's vibrant energy feels like a ghost. The news of the disaster at Actium travels faster than your ships, carried on the winds of rumor and desert caravans. The whole Eastern world, which had been tenuously allied with you, now sees the writing on the wall. Client kings and local governors who had sworn loyalty to Antony are now tripping over themselves to send messages of congratulation and allegiance to Octavian. Your empire is dissolving like a sandcastle in the tide. Antony completely falls apart. This isn't the boisterous, larger-than-life Hercules you knew. This is a broken man. He's humiliated, he's defeated, and he's drowning in despair. He retreats from the palace and builds himself a small, secluded hut on a pier overlooking the harbor, a place he dramatically names the Timoneum, after a legendary Athenian misanthrope who hated all of humanity. He spends his days there alone, staring out at the sea, replaying his failures, and raging at the friends and allies who have abandoned him. The inimitable livers are dead and gone. Now he's the founding member of the lonely, miserable Hermits Club. You, on the other hand, do not have the luxury of a depressive breakdown. You are a queen, a mother, and a survivor. While Antony is having his emo phase by the sea, you are in overdrive trying to salvage something, anything, from the wreckage. You are a whirlwind of frantic, desperate activity. You send Caesarion, now a teenager, away to the south, to the port of Berenice on the Red Sea, hoping he can escape to India or some other faraway land beyond the reach of Rome. Your other children are still with you, their futures hanging by the thinnest of threads. You start thinking of every possible escape plan, each one more audacious and insane than the last. Your most famous scheme is a truly bonkers feat of engineering. You plan to have your remaining warships dragged overland across the desert from the Nile to the Red Sea, a distance of over 70 miles. It's an almost impossible task, a desperate attempt to move an entire fleet across a waterless wasteland. You actually manage to get a few ships across, but the local Nabatean Arabs, who have already switched their allegiance to Octavian, promptly attack and burn them. Escape by sea is no longer an option. You try diplomacy. You send ambassadors to Octavian, offering to abdicate in favor of your children. You are willing to give up your throne if he will spare them, if he will allow your dynasty to continue. Antony sends his own messengers, begging to be allowed to live as a private citizen in Athens. Octavian's reply is cold, calculating, and cruel. To Antony, he sends no answer at all. To you, he sends a secret message. He hints that he might be willing to show you mercy, and maybe even let your children rule. If you do one thing for him, kill Mark Antony. He's trying to drive a wedge between you, to make you betray the man you've tied your life to. You are trapped in a strategic and emotional nightmare. In the summer of 30 BC, Octavian's legions arrived. They don't come from the sea as you expected. They march overland, having secured the loyalty of all the surrounding provinces. Your last remaining defenses crumble. Your army, a shadow of its former self, puts up a half-hearted fight and then promptly surrenders. Alexandria, the most fantastic city in the world, your city, is about to fall. As Octavian's forces enter the city, chaos erupts. A false rumor spreads through the palace. You are dead. You have committed suicide in your mausoleum, a grand tomb you had been building for yourself near the temple of Isis. When this news reaches Antony in his sad little hut, it's the final blow. With nothing left to live for, he decides to die a Roman death. He asks one of his loyal servants, a man named Eros, to kill him with his sword. But Eros, unable to kill the general he loves, turns the sword on himself and dies at Antony's feet. Shamed and resolute, Antony then takes the sword and falls upon it himself. But in what seems to be the final, cruel joke of his life, he botches it. He doesn't die instantly. He's left mortally wounded, bleeding out in agony. At that moment, a messenger arrives from you. You're not dead. You've locked yourself in the upper level of your mausoleum with your two most trusted handmaidens, Iris and Charmian. Antony, hearing you're alive, begs his men to carry him to you. They bring his dying, bleeding body to the foot of your tomb. The doors are sealed, so you and your maids have to hoist him up the stone walls with ropes. Imagine that horrific, gruesome scene. You, straining with all your might, pulling the dying love of your life through a window as he bleeds all over your royal robes. He dies in your arms. A tragic, pathetic end for the man who once thought he could conquer the world. You are now truly alone, a captive queen in your own tomb, with the body of your lover at your feet and the army of your enemy at the door. You're in the cold, stone mausoleum, the air thick with the smell of myrrh and drying blood. Antony's body lies beside you. Outside, you can hear the tramp of Roman soldiers, the disciplined shouts of centurions taking control of your city. Your reign is over. Your kingdom is gone. All you have left is this final, fortified room and the terrifying uncertainty of what comes next. Octavian wants you alive. This isn't about mercy. It's about optics. He has a grand triumph planned in Rome to celebrate his victory. A triumph isn't just a parade. It's the ultimate Roman spectacle, a religious and military ceremony where a victorious general shows off the spoils of war. And the greatest spoil of all is the captured enemy leader. He wants to parade you through the streets of Rome in golden chains, the legendary queen of the Nile, humbled and defeated for all to see. It would be the ultimate climax to his propaganda campaign, the living proof of his superiority. Julius Caesar had paraded your sister Arsinoe. Octavian wants to parade you. It would be a fate worse than death, a public ritual of utter humiliation. He sends one of his officers, a man named Gaius Proculius, to negotiate your surrender. He comes to the locked door of the mausoleum, and you speak to him through the bars of a small window. You refuse to surrender unconditionally. You are still a queen, and you will negotiate as one. You demand that your children be allowed to inherit your kingdom. It's a bold, hopeless request. While Proculius is keeping you distracted at the door, another group of Roman soldiers uses a ladder to scale the mausoleum and enter through the same window you used to hoist up Antony. Suddenly, you hear a shout from one of your handmaidens. You turn, and the Romans are there. Your first instinct is pure Ptolemy. You grab a small dagger you have hidden in your robes and try to stab yourself. You will not be taken alive, but Proculius is faster. He lunges, grabs your arm, and disarms you. It's over. You are a prisoner. You're escorted back to the palace, every move watched by Roman guards. You are a captive in your own home. You try to starve yourself to death, refusing all food, but Octavian gets wind of it and threatens to harm your children if you don't eat. It's a cruel, effective piece of blackmail. He is keeping you alive, fattening you up for his triumph. A few days later, he comes to see you. This is your final gambit, the last throw of the dice. You are 39 years old, but you deliberately make yourself look grief-stricken and vulnerable. Your hair is a mess, your face is swollen from crying, and your clothes are torn. You are trying to appeal to his pity. But Octavian is not Caesar. He is not Antony. He is a cold, emotionless block of marble. He is immune to your charms. The conversation is a masterclass in psychological warfare. You try to justify your actions, blaming everything on your fear of Antony. You present him with a list of all your treasures, pretending it's a complete inventory, a sign of your submission. But one of your own servants, a man named Seleucus, betrays you right there on the spot, blurting out that you've hidden some of your most valuable items. You fly into a rage, grabbing the man by the hair and punching him in the face in front of the most powerful man in the world. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine outburst of fury or a calculated piece of theater. Was it a desperate attempt to look like a hysterical woman obsessed with trinkets, to make Octavian underestimate you and think you were too attached to worldly goods ever to consider suicide? Octavian is unmoved. He calmly tells you to keep the treasures you've hidden. He offers you vague assurances that you will be treated honorably, but his eyes are cold. You know precisely what that means. You know he's lying. As he leaves, you have your answer. There is no negotiation. There is no mercy for you. There is only the triumph. There is only humiliation, and you will not allow it. You make one last request. You ask for permission to perform the final funeral rites for Antony. Octavian, perhaps seeing this as a sign of your broken spirit, agrees. You visit Antony's tomb, you embrace his sarcophagus, you say your final goodbyes. Then you return to your rooms in the palace. You take a bath, you put on your finest royal robes, and you sit down for a magnificent final meal. The stage is now set for your last and most significant act of defiance. You have outsmarted jealous siblings, charming dictators, and drunken generals. Now you must outsmart the man who has conquered you all. You are dressed in your full royal regalia, the golden uraeus cobra coiled on your brow. You're not a prisoner anymore. You are the incarnation of Isis, the queen of the Nile, preparing for her final journey. After your lavish last meal, a servant brings you a simple basket of figs. The guards inspect it briefly, probably joking about your sudden appetite, and let it pass. You dismiss all your servants except for your 2 loyal handmaidens, Iras and Charmian. You write a final letter, seal it, and give it to a messenger to deliver to Octavian. Then you seal the doors to your chamber. What happens next is one of the greatest and most fiercely debated mysteries in all of history. The traditional story, immortalized by Shakespeare and every Hollywood movie, is that hidden beneath the figs in the basket was an asp, a venomous Egyptian cobra, the symbol of divine royalty. The snake bites you, a quick, almost painless death that was considered a noble and even holy way to die, a release by a divine agent. Iris collapses at your feet, dying with you. Charmian, barely alive, uses her last ounce of strength to adjust the diadem on your head, making sure you meet death looking like the queen you are. When Octavian's guards, alarmed by your sealed letter, finally break down the door, they find you lying on your golden couch, looking not dead, but as if you are peacefully asleep. Charmian falls dead just as they enter. It's a perfect, theatrical, and compelling image. It's the story you wanted the world to hear. You didn't just die. You orchestrated a sacred event. You chose your own death, robbing Octavian of his prize and turning your suicide into an act of divine ascension. You became a myth, but did it really happen that way? Historians and toxicologists have been debating this issue for centuries. An asp's venom is nasty stuff, but it's not always fast. It can be agonizing, causing convulsions and paralysis. It's messy. And how could one snake have killed all 3 of you so quickly and neatly? And how did you hide a cobra, not exactly a tiny creature, in a small basket of figs? There are other theories. Some ancient sources suggest you had a hollow hairpin or a comb filled with a potent, fast-acting poison, perhaps a mixture of hemlock, wolfsbane, and opium. You could have pricked yourself with it, a swift and discreet method that would leave almost no trace. This sounds far more plausible, more efficient, and more in character for a woman who was a known student of toxicology. You'd probably tested various poisons on condemned prisoners to see which one offered the best combination of speed and dignity. You were nothing if not a thorough planner. Octavian, for his part, was reportedly furious. He received your letter, which was essentially a final, regal, "You can't fire me, I quit," and immediately sent his guards. He was too late. He had been outmaneuvered one last time. He found your body, and though he was denied his triumph, he did something unusual. He honored your final wish. He buried you with Antony, a final act of respect for a foe who had earned it. But his mercy did not extend to your children. Your oldest son, Caesar Ion, the living link to Julius Caesar and the greatest threat to Octavian's legitimacy, was hunted down and killed. His tutor betrayed him, convincing him to turn back from his escape route with false promises of a kingdom. When Octavian was asked what should be done with him, he supposedly quoted Homer, "It is not good to have too many Caesars." Your 3 children with Antony, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, were spared. They were taken back to Rome, paraded in your place in the triumph, and then given to Octavia, Antony's spurned Roman wife, to raise. In a final, bizarre twist of fate, the children of the woman who destroyed her marriage became her wards. Only Cleopatra Selene is known to have survived to adulthood. She was married off to a North African client king and lived out her days as a competent and respected ruler in her own right, a faint echo of her mother's brilliance. With your death, the Ptolemaic dynasty, which had ruled Egypt for 300 years, was extinguished. The age of the pharaohs was over. Egypt became a Roman province, Octavian's personal piggy bank, its vast wealth funding the creation of the Roman Empire. Octavian would soon change his name to Augustus and become the first, and arguably greatest, of all Roman emperors. Your story, your scandalous life, and your iconic death became the founding myth of his new world order. You were the villain he had to defeat to bring peace and stability to Rome. You made it. You survived the story of Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt. You navigated the treacherous waters of sibling rivalry, Roman politics, civil war, and disastrous naval battles. You stood on the balcony of Alexandria and felt the weight of a crown, and you lay dying on the cold floor of a mausoleum, the mistress of your own spectacular end. Her life wasn't just a romance or a tragedy. It was a high-stakes masterclass in power, survival, and public relations. She lost the war, but in the end, she won the narrative. She made herself an icon, a legend, a meme so powerful that 2,000 years later, we are still completely obsessed with her. She didn't just live history, she created it. So as you go back to your day, remember that no matter how bad your family drama gets, at least you probably haven't had to poison a sibling, smuggle yourself in a rug, or declare war on Italy. Probably. Then again, the day is still young.